One thing you'll often hear me say, I've said it throughout a couple of different sermons, is that I have a deep appreciation for the English language. Not only do I have a deep appreciation for the English language, but I love the African American English language. We have our own vernacular. We come up with stuff that don't even make sense sometimes, but it sounds good to the ear. It really does. We say some slick stuff, and I don't know when it started. I don't know when we found this swag that we have, but don't nobody do it like our people. And I'm not just bigging us up because it's Black History Month. I big us up 365 days a year because I don't know about you, but I love the Gospel of James Brown, which says, say it loud. I'm Black and I'm proud. See, that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. We have this vernacular. We have this swag, this suaveness to us. The way we talk just ain't the way everybody talk. I love how we talk. And there's a particular phrase that hit me as I was reading this particular text. And it's a phrase that goes something like this: stuck like Chuck. Stuck like Chuck. Just by show of hands, how many of you have ever heard that term, stuck like Chuck? If you ain't never heard that term, I need you to get out more. Yeah, find some new friends, get out and mingle with some folks. But for those of you who don't know what stuck like Chuck means, I went to the internet because the internet is undefeated. You can find anything you want on the internet. And I discovered that this term stuck like Chuck is an adjective, and it means to be immobilized or unable to proceed. Now, I'm from Portsmouth, and I know some things, and I do know that this term has part of its origin in the drug community, because there are times when folks are doing some activities that they probably should not be doing, and they do it just a little too hard, and they get stuck like Chuck. But we ain't talking about that today, because none of us know anything about that. We've been saved our whole lives. We don't even know nobody who deals with anything like that. So we're going to stick to this definition, which is to be immobilized or unable to proceed, stuck like Chuck. Now, some of you are asking, Pastor Mike, what in the world does that have to do with the text that we're reading today? Well, if you read the same scripture that I just read, you would notice that somebody there was stuck like Chuck. Yeah. If you read through the text, the Bible lets us know that Jesus decided he was going to take his inner circle, the three, Peter, James, and John. They're his inner circle. They're the closest disciples. And he decides that he's going to take them up on this particular mountain. Now, we really don't know which mountain it is. Some folks just call it the Mount of Transfiguration. We don't know which exact mountain it is. And theologians believe that it could be one of two, but that really does not matter today. Jesus decided he wanted to take them up on a mountain. He took his closest three up on the mountain because the other disciples weren't ready for what it is he was doing. See, Jesus was about to do a new thing. Somebody say new thing. And the fact of the matter is, everybody ain't ready for the new thing that Jesus is trying to do, which is why sometimes when God wants to do a new thing in your life, you'll notice that folks don't call like they used to call. You'll notice that folks don't text like they used to text. And it's amazing because you would think that God would want everybody and their mama there for the new thing he's about to do. But the truth of the matter is, everybody ain't ready for the new thing that God is doing. I wish I had somebody to testify. Everybody ain't ready for the new thing God is trying to do in your life. Maybe it's just me, but whenever God is about to do a new thing, I notice my circle gets smaller and smaller. I notice that the audience members start to scatter. I notice that folks who I thought would always be there just all of a sudden disappear. Something about when God wants to do a new thing in your life. And the crazy thing is, you can spend the whole year trying to get rid of folks, but the moment God brings a new thing in your life, they just seem to scatter. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're allergic to new things. I don't know, but Jesus wants to do a new thing. And when he decides to do this new thing, he says, I can't take all 12 of y'all. I'm going to just take 3 of y'all. Now he takes these 3 up into the mountain, and something interesting happens. The Bible says that he's transfigured. Now I'll paint a picture for you. Jesus begins to shine. He begins to glow. There's this glory that begins to unfold from him, so much so that it's a blinding light. It's too much for the disciples to handle. He's revealing his glory to them in a new way. God is revealing a new glory. I don't know about you. I like old glory, but it's something about when God reveals new glory. And Jesus begins to peel off and show this new glory. And all of a sudden, y'all, I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden, church folks start talking.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Jesus is doing something new and church folks start talking. I don't know what it is, what's wrong with us, but Jesus is trying to do something new, but here we are talking. Where is that in the text? Well, the Bible says that Peter says, Lord, it's good for us to be here. If you want, I will set up 3 shelters here, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. I want to argue that Peter is stuck like Chuck. Now, before you judge Peter, I want to suggest on today that your name may not be Chuck, but a whole lot of y'all are stuck. And I ain't expect to get too many amens on that because nobody likes to confess their faults one to another that we may pray and be healed according to James 5:16. But will you help your neighbor be truthful on today and say, neighbor, I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
But you've been stuck.
You've been stuck.
And if I were to give today's sermon the title, it would simply be Stuck Like Chuck. Stuck like Chuck. Do me a favor real quick and help me preach this to your neighbor one more time. You're going to be sick of your neighbor by the time we leave, but look at your neighbor, say, neighbor, today we will no longer be stuck like Chuck. Amen. Listen, I want to give you 3 reasons believers can find ourselves stuck. 3 reasons believers can find ourselves stuck. Can I give y'all the first reason?
Yeah.
Amen. Y'all don't sound enthused. The first reason I believe that we, the believers, can find ourselves stuck is because, and this is going to hurt a little bit, so brace yourself, because we function in our flesh.
Woo. There it is.
Yeah. I'm going to say it again for the folks in the back. We function in our flesh. We function in our flesh. Where am I getting this from? Well, this is right in verse 1. The Bible says after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and his brother John and led them up on a high mountain by themselves. We function in our flesh. Now, some of you are saying, Pastor Mike, where in the world are you getting this from? Well, he says after 6 days. Somebody say 6. Now, the reason that ain't really clicking nothing, the reason that ain't making much sense to you is because you don't understand biblical numerology. Biblical numerology is this concept, this idea that numbers play an important part in the Bible, that every number has some form of significance. And this number 6 is a very interesting number. Somebody asked me why. Why? Well, this number 6 is symbolic or representative of man or flesh. For the Bible lets us know that in the creation account that God is creating everything through days 1 through 5. When he gets to the 6th day, he says, let us make man in our image after our likeness. 6 is a day that's symbolic of man, of flesh, of humankind. And so after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and his brother John. Now, that's interesting to me because I'm saying, Jesus, why would you take them up on the mountain? Why would you do a new thing on the 6th day? Why not wait for the 7th day, that day of completion? Why is it that 6 days later you decide to take them up on this mountain? You're about to do something new, but you take them on the 6th day. And I love talking to the text because the Holy Spirit is a bad mamma jamma, as Bishop would say. As I'm asking this question to the text, I began to hear the Holy Spirit speak after 6 days. At the moment of flesh, at an opportunity for flesh to arise, he decides, I'm going to do a new thing. I'm going to say that again. At the moment, at the opportunity where flesh would have the ability to rise, I'm going to do a new thing. It's something about when God starts doing a new thing, that things start to rise up in us that we didn't realize were in us, that when God decides to do a new thing, we find ourselves slipping back into old habits. When God decides to do a new thing, this flesh of ours starts to rise. I said, Jesus, why in the world would you wait until the 6th day? And he said, I wanted there to be an opportunity to see what they brought with them. He takes them up on the 6th day because he wants to see what they brought to the moment. And I would argue that the reason some of us find ourselves stuck is because of what we're bringing with us. Will you look at your neighbor real quick and say, neighbor, what did you bring to church?
What did you bring to church?
And the truth of the matter is, you ain't got to wait for an answer. All you got to do is watch their behavior when they come to church. See, I've come to the realization that those who don't enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise, they brought flesh to church. I've come to the realization that those who can't make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands, brought their flesh to church. And it's amazing because I'm just crazy enough to believe that every time we assemble ourselves together, that God is trying to do a new thing. But the problem is God is trying to do a new thing, but we bringing old things to church.
Preach, Pastor. Help us, Lord.
He says, I waited to the 6th day because I'm taking them into a new moment, but I wanted to see what they brought with them. And the problem that Peter, James, and John run into is that they're walking into a new space, a place that requires their faith, but they're full of flesh.
Jesus.
See if I can make this plain. How many of you have ever been to Chuck E. Cheese? You've been to Chuck E. Cheese. You know, it's funny, when I was little, I thought it was actually like Chuck E. Cheese. I only when I got older that I realized it's Chuck, middle initial E, last name Cheese. I just thought it was Chuck E. Cheese, but it's Chuck, middle initial E, Cheese. And Chuck E. Cheese is a very interesting place. It's a place that you can go and you can play games. It's a place that you can go and have good food. It's a place that you can go and lights and sounds are everywhere. It's a place of entertainment. And there's a lot of things that I used to love doing at Chuck E. Cheese, but there's one thing in particular that I used to love doing at Chuck E. Cheese. Somebody asked me what? Chuck E. Cheese had this machine that you would step into. And when you stepped into the machine, all of a sudden, wind would start to blow and tickets would begin swirling. See, y'all don't know the value of tickets. Tickets was like money at Chuck E. Cheese. The more tickets you had, the more you could potentially leave there with. And so I would love going to Chuck E. Cheese because in Chuck E. Cheese, they had this, they called it the ticket blaster machine. I could go into the ticket blaster machine and tickets would swirl all around me. It was quite an amazing experience. And I remember going to a birthday party one time and watching kids in this ticket blaster machine. And so the next time I went to Chuck E. Cheese, I caught the revelation that if I'm going to go to Chuck E. Cheese, I got to come prepared. Yeah. And so what I would do is whenever I would go to Chuck E. Cheese, I would find my pants that had the most pockets. The one that had the pockets on the side, right here, and the ones that had the pockets down here and the pockets back here. I would wear my pants that had pockets everywhere. And then some of you are saying, Pastor Mike, why would you go to Chuck E. Cheese with so many pockets? Because when I went to Chuck E. Cheese, I had expectation that I was going to walk into an experience that would surround me with blessings. And what I did not want to happen was to be in a situation where I'm surrounded by blessings, but I'm missing my blessings because I bought the wrong thing. Can I help somebody on today? The reason Sunday mornings ain't like they should be is because we're bringing the wrong thing to church. We're coming to the house of God for an experience, but we're coming to the house of God with no expectation. Some of you are coming to God waiting to experience healing, but you have no expectation of healing. You're coming in with looking to experience provision, but you have no expectation for provision. You come with looking to experience love, but you have no expectation for love. And might the problem be that you're getting the very church you brought with you? He says, I'm going to take y'all on the 6th day. Because on the 6th day, it's an opportunity for me to see what you brought with you. And the problem we're running into is that God wants to do a new thing, but we have old expectations. We're coming to church Sunday after Sunday, and we want this amazing experience, but we have low expectations. The reason we are stuck like Chuck, even as believers, is because we function in our flesh. Look at your neighbor real quick. Say, neighbor, What did you bring to church?
What did you bring to church?
What did you bring to church? And is it possible that you experienced the very thing that you brought with you? See, I'm of the mindset that church will be as good or bad as we make it.
Amen.
That what we experience in here is a direct result of what we expect before we get here.
Yes.
And can I bust a myth real quick?
Yes.
I'm about to mess some folks up, and I hope y'all gonna be all right. Church ain't a hospital.
Ooh, come on, Pastor Mike.
I know famous pastors told y'all that the church is a hospital. Jesus is a hospital.
Yes. Amen. Yes.
The church is an equipping ground.
Yes.
And the problem is, thank you, Holy Spirit. The problem is we come in here sick with no expectation of coming here to be made strong.
Come on, you better say that.
And so we come to church Sunday after Sunday nursing sickness. Instead of coming with the expectation that I may come sick, but I'm leaving a soldier. Y'all remember them old songs the saints would sing? We are soldiers in the army. We got to fight. Although we have to cry, I'm going to hold up the bloodstained banner. I'm going to hold it until they won't come into church to be sick. They will come into church to be soldiers. And the problem we have today is too many folks are bringing their sickness to church. The devil is a lie. Take your sickness to Jesus. But once Jesus makes you well, bring your strength to the church, because God is trying to raise up soldiers in this season. But the problem is we're coming not with the mindset to be made soldiers, but we're coming with the mindset that somebody's going to nurse us in our sickness.
Yes.
My God, my God.
Yes.
And so maybe the church is a hospital, but because we made it that way. And God is saying, I'm not looking for sick people in 2023. I'm looking for soldiers. I'm looking for folks that can fight,
Work on it.
not folks with a fever.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking for folks that can go out,
Yes.
not folks that's going to stay shut in.
My Lord. Talk on it.
The reason we're stuck like Chuck is because we function in our flesh.
Yeah. Function in our flesh.
We come for an experience, but we have no expectation. Not only that, but we fail to foresee. The reason we find ourselves stuck is because we function in our flesh, but also because we fail to foresee. Now, some of you are saying, Pastor Mike, where are you getting that from? Verse 2 says he was transfigured in front of them, and his face shone like the sun. His clothes became as white as the light. Suddenly, somebody say suddenly, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. So let's recap here. Jesus has waited to the 6th day, and he's brought Peter, James, and John on the mountain with him. So now the Bible says he transfigures. He begins to reveal his glory. He begins to reveal his glory. And as he reveals his glory, Moses and Elijah show up. Okay, so now we got Moses and Elijah. We got Jesus, and we got Peter, James, and John. We got Moses, Elijah, Jesus, Peter, James, and John. We got Moses, Elijah, Jesus, Peter, James, and John. Okay, let's break this down a little deeper. We have Moses, who represents the law. We have Elijah, who represents the prophets. We have Jesus, who's the Son of God. We got Peter, James, and John. They're the disciples. So we have the law and the prophets. We have Jesus, the Son of God, the Word made flesh. And then we have the disciples. We have the followers of Christ. Let's break this down a little deeper. We got the Old Testament. We got Jesus, the gospel, and we got the New Testament.
Yes, sir.
Okay, y'all are missing what's happening here. We have three moves of God.
Yes,
We have the law and the prophets, which made up the Old Testament. We have Jesus, who is the gospel. He's the good news. And then we have three of the writers of the New Testament. Y'all missed it. Jesus has a strategy here. He has those who wrote the old. He has himself, who is everything. And then he has those who are going to write the new. Can I tell you what we fail to foresee? You fail to foresee that you're next.
Oh, God. Yes. Yeah.
Come on. Yes, sir.
Put this in reverse.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He got it.
So I'm going to pick y'all up.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to go. We got Moses and Elijah. We got Jesus. We got Peter, James, and John. We got the law and the prophets. We have the Son of God, and we have the followers of Christ. We have the Old Testament. We have the gospel, the good news, and we have the New Testament here. The problem is they failed to foresee what was coming. And this brings me to a thought. We spend too much time waiting on the next move of God instead of working on the next move of God.
My God, that's good right there. That's good there.
What am I saying? Jesus brings them on this mountain, and he is the bridge between the old and the new. And the problem is the new don't realize they're next.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So they come to this moment, and God is trying to do a new thing, but they're stuck in the old because they don't know who they are.
That's good.
The problem we're facing is that we're coming to church and we're waiting and not working. We're waiting on God to do what he did, and he said, I'm trying to do something new, but the new don't realize they're next because the new that I want to do is through you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought I was in a church. Okay. He takes the old. He becomes the bridge to the new, and the new is there. But they don't realize what's happening because they don't know who they are. Maybe the problem we're running into is that we have churches filled with people who don't recognize who they are.
That's the truth.
Will you look at somebody real quick and say, neighbor? My name is next. Listen, if they didn't celebrate, I need you to look across the room real quick and say, other neighbor. Hello. My name is next. Listen, I'm not waiting on the next move of God. I am the next move of God. I think you missed the memo. You're waiting on God to move in your workplace, and God is saying, I'm waiting on you to move in your workplace. I'm waiting on God to move in the school system. He's saying, I'm waiting on you to move in the school. The problem is I'm trying to do something new, but the new don't realize that they're next, and that the new that I want to do is a new that I'm going to do through you. A young man went to the DMV. It was his first time at the DMV, and he was, going through the process. Y'all know the DMV. It's an all-day situation. And he goes into the DMV because he got to handle some business. But it's his first time at the DMV, and there's an older cat that's watching him. He sees this young buck at the DMV, and he's just watching him. This young fella gets all his papers and everything, and he sits down, and he whips out his cell phone. He's scrolling his cell phone, and the old cat looking at him like, this young buck don't know what's going on. This young fella is at the DMV. It's his first time at the DMV trying to take care of some business, but he's not really taking care of business. He's scrolling his phone, and so some time goes on, and the older gentleman walks over to him, and he says, young buck, can I say something to you? He said, I'm a little busy right now. He said, no, I really need to tell you something. He said, sir, I'm busy right now. I'm trying to take care of business. He said, I see you trying to take care of business, but you're not really taking care of business. Can I tell you something? He said, fine, sir. What do you have to say? He said, young buck, I need you to pay attention. He said, what do you mean? He says, I need you to pay attention. He said, sir, what are you talking about? He said, what number are you? He said, what do you mean, what number am I? He said, son, what number are you? And so he starts fumbling through his paper, and he finds the ticket. And he looks at the ticket, and he says, I'm I-8. He says, the reason I need you to pay attention is because you're next.
My God.
He said, I need you to pay attention because you're next.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want you to miss your moment.
My God.
My God.
See, we can be so busy doing nothing that we miss the fact that we're next.
My God.
And many of us have missed new moments in God because we were dealing in old business.
Yes, sir.
And God is saying, listen, I'm bringing old business up, but not for you to stay in the old business. Yeah. I'm bringing up old business to show you that you ain't old business, but you new business. Can I help a young preacher right now that might be watching? You don't have to sound like your pastor.
Come on.
Your pastor is old business.
Yes, sir.
And God is trying to do something new through you. but you still preaching your pastor's sermon. And God is saying, if I wanted your pastor again, I would have called him again. But I'm calling the Joshuas in this season. The problem is that the Joshuas ain't moving because they're imitating Moses. And I heard an old saying that imitation is suicide. That if I pretend to be you, I'm murdering myself. But God has a call on our lives. And this is why he's saying, I need you to wake up, church. I need you to pay attention because I'm doing something new. And the new that I'm going to do is a new I'm doing through you. Somebody say, hello, my name is Next. The reason you ain't left that job yet is because God is waiting for you to be the next move in that job. The reason you ain't left that church yet is because God is waiting on you to be the next move. You ever walked into a place and got frustrated by that place to the point that you wanted to leave? Can I suggest that maybe the reason God sent you there is because something was missing and he wanted to move in that place, but instead of letting God move, you moved on?
My God. My God.
Some of you have given up on folks too soon. They got on your last nerve, but the only reason God connected you with them is because they were missing something in their life and you had it. The reason we are stuck is because we don't know who we are. And if you knew who you were, if you knew you were next, you would not be so quick to run away from stuff. You would not be so quick to quit on things. You would not be so quick to run away. Why? Because you understand that you're next. The reason we find ourselves stuck is because we fail to foresee. And what we fail to foresee is that you're next. Can I give y'all another one? Not only are we stuck because we function in our flesh, not only are we stuck because we fail to foresee, but we find ourselves stuck because we fall back on familiarity. We fall back on familiarity. I told you to get your amens out early. We fall back on familiarity. That's verse 4. The text says, then Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it's good for us to be here. If you want, I will set up 3 shelters here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Now, this is interesting to me. Just looking at Peter's verbiage, he says, it's good for us to be here. If you want, I will set up 3 shelters. Now, here's the problem I have with that. Jesus never told them. Don't miss what's happening. Peter says, Lord, it's good for us. Now, again, Jesus is exposing them to new glory. This is not a talking moment. See, the problem with us is we talk too much. That God is trying to show us something new, but we're talking over the new. He's showing them something new, and Peter says, it's good for us to be here. If you want. Now, before y'all judge Peter, you do the same thing. You do the same thing. You just don't do it in Peter's word. See, when Peter said, if you want, what he was really saying is how we kind of say, I believe God is leading me this way. I believe I feel the Lord doing this. The Lord ain't said nothing, but I feel the Lord is leading me. I got this thing in my shana now. We get real deep with it. I feel the Lord. He says, Lord, if you want. In other words, he says, God, I want to do this and I hope you bless it. Okay, y'all want to act phony. Okay. God, I want to date this person and I hope you bless it. God, I want to take this job and I hope you bless it. God, I want to start this business and I hope you bless it. God, I'm going to start this ministry and I hope you bless it. He says, it's good for us to be here. And if you want, I'll set up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. Now, the problem here is the shelter that he's trying to set up is a booth. This is similar to the booths that they would set up for the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, the problem with that is this booth is a dwelling place. Okay. So Peter is in a moment and he decides that I want to move into the moment. I'm preaching better than y'all respond. He said, I want to move into the moment. Okay. I want to move in to the moment. Okay. Now here's the problem. Moments are temporary. So he says, I want to make a permanent move here into something that's temporary. Can I tell you why some of us are so heartbroken? Because you moved into the moment.
My God.
Can I tell you why some of us are so frustrated right now? Because you moved in to a moment.
My God.
Can I tell you why some preachers are stressed out right now? Because you moved in to the moment.
Yes, sir.
He decides, I want to build a tabernacle and I want to move in to the moment, which brings me to my next thought. Stop trying to capture moments that God designed to capture you.
My God. My God.
Stop trying to capture moments that God designed to capture you. I don't think y'all know what I'm saying. Stop trying to capture moments that God designed to capture you. What am I saying? We are trying to capture something that God was trying to use to capture us. Okay. Why is that important? When you capture a moment, you move in. But when a moment captures you, you move out.
Yes.
When you capture a moment, you move in, but when the moment captures you, you move out. Let's see if I can make this plain. One of the critiques of my generation and the generation that follows us, and ain't too many of us in here, so I need y'all to help me. But one of the critiques of our generation and the generation that follows is we have these things right here, these smartphones. And the critique is that we spend too much time using these trying to capture things. It's gotten so bad that now if you go to a concert, they will make you lock your phone up. That if you go to a comedy show, well, some comedy shows, they will make you lock these up. And the reason is they don't want you to spend the whole night trying to capture the moment. See, here's the thing. If I spend the whole night trying to capture the moment, I'm in the moment, but I'm not in the moment. Okay, you know, folks, you go out to eat and they can't even eat their food because they're too busy taking pictures of their food for the gram. You've been to the concerts where they can't even dance and have fun. Everybody's standing still with their phones straight up, just like this. You've been at the comedy show, you can't even laugh at the joke because you're missing the jokes because you're trying to stream it for your friends on social media. The problem with trying to capture the moment instead of letting the moment capture you is that you'll be in the moment but not in the moment. And when you're in the moment but not in the moment, you will miss the moment. Peter is struggling because he's in the moment but he's not in the moment. And because he's in the moment and not in the moment, he falls back on familiarity because God is now trying to do a new thing, but because he missed it, he reverts to an old thing. We fall back on what's familiar. We try to capture moments, and God is saying, listen, this new thing that I'm trying to do, I don't need you to capture it. I need it to capture you. Because if it captures you, watch this. When you're captured by a moment, you'll start creating other moments. And we've become a generation so encapsulated with capturing moments and capturing moves of God that we're not creating moves of God. And this is why God says, I'm searching the land looking for at least one, but I found none. Why? Because everybody's trying to capture what I'm doing and no one's trying to create what I want to do next. We fall back on familiarity. Now, I told you I had, 3 reasons believers can find ourselves stuck, but like a good spades hand, I got a possible. Can I give it to y'all? Okay. The reason we find ourselves stuck is because we function in our flesh. The reason we find ourselves stuck is because we fail to foresee. The reason we find ourselves stuck is because we fall back on familiarity. But last but not least, we find ourselves stuck because we forget to follow through. We forget to follow through. Verses 5-7 says, while he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, this is my beloved son with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. And when the disciples heard this, they fell face down and were terrified. Jesus came up and touched them and said, get up. Don't be afraid. He says, get up. Don't be afraid. He says, get up. Don't be afraid. He gives them a word that not only do they get an experience, but they get a word.
Jesus.
Now, the reason y'all ain't feeling me right now is because you got to jump down to verse 14. See, Jesus tells them, get up, don't be afraid.
Yes, sir.
And the problem is they forget the word by verse 14. Because at verse 14, they get to the crowd. And when they get to the crowd, there's a man in the crowd who says, Jesus, I brought my son to your disciples. He has a demon and they couldn't do nothing with him. Now, what I expected, this is me, this is what I expected is that 3 of the disciples were with Jesus on the mountain. The rest of the disciples was down here tripping. What I expected to happen was that the 3 that were on the mountain with Jesus would get up and not be afraid. But they get to the crowd, and by the time they get to the crowd, they forgot the word that they received in the midst of the experience.
Jesus.
Because Jesus has to deal with this demon. Now, wait a minute, pause, back up, rewind, hold on. They were in the new experience with Jesus.
Yes, sir.
But they get down to the crowd, and for whatever reason, they get to the crowd and they forget the word. The word was get up, don't be afraid.
Yes, sir.
Get up, don't be afraid. Is it possible that the reason we find ourselves stuck is we think that the word we receive in church was for church only? And then when we get to the crowd, we forget the word that we got in church. And we forget to get up and not be afraid because we left the word where we received it. The problem with some of us is we come to church Sunday after Sunday and we receive a word, but we leave the word where we receive the word, and we leave the church and we get to the crowd. And by the time we get to the crowd, we forgot the word. And so when we get to the crowd, we don't know what to do because we left what to do at the church. We dance on Sunday and we're doomed on Monday because we had an experience and we left the word. And the word coincides with the experience.
Yes.
He reveals his glory to them and then gives them a word. And watch this. The crazy thing is they apply the word in the moment. They get up. They're not scared. But then they leave the word on the mountain and get to the crowd and are scared of a demon that they should have had the power to deal with because they have now experienced God in a new way. And it brings me to my last thought. Stop entering new places in God and leaving with no power from God.
Yes, Lord.
If we're going to enter a new place in God, then baby, leave with new power.
Yes, God.
Thank you, Jesus.
Today is a new place.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
Yes.
Don't leave here with no power.
Yes,
My
Lord.
God.
See if I can make this plain. Father decided to take his children to the beach.
Yes.
It was the first time at the beach. He let the kids run around all day and have fun at the beach. They did all the stuff that you do at a beach. They, played in the waves and they went around and buried each other in the sand. They found all the new creatures and things on the beach. They did all the things you do at the beach. And at the end of the day, the father says, all right, it's time for us to go. He calls the kids back to the car, and the kids get back to the car. And when they get back to the car, he begins to ask them, what did you bring back with you? And each one of the kids looked at each other and they said, Daddy, we didn't bring anything with us. And the daddy began to look at them disappointed. He said, children, have you ever been to this beach before? They said, no. He said, do you know when you're going to come back to this beach? They said, no. He said, okay, if you've never been here before and you don't know when you're coming back, you should never leave empty-handed. I know this ain't your first time coming to church, but the truth of the matter is you don't know if you're going to be here next Sunday.
Amen.
So stop coming here week after week and leaving empty-handed. We find ourselves stuck because we forget to follow through. I appreciate y'all saying, Pastor Mike, you sure did preach. That's cool. Take it home.
Yes.
That's it.
I appreciate you sharing it and resharing it on social media.
That's it.
That's cool. Don't just post it on your wall. Post it on your heart.
Post it on your heart. That's it. I love it. Post it.
Because you don't know the next time you're coming into these
You
four
better
walls.
believe it.
Yeah.
So you better leave out of here with something.
Yes, God.
He looks at his children and says, never leave a new place empty-handed.
My God.
And I'm crazy enough to believe that if we come with an expectation of God to do something new week after week after week,
Yes.
then he will always give us something
Yes.
to walk out of here with.
Yes.
And we will become unstuck and unstoppable. The reason we find ourselves stuck is because we function in our flesh. What are you bringing to church? If you don't like the worship experience, bring better worship.
That's right.
If you don't like how the church look, bring better decor.
Yes.
If you don't like the church gatherings, you make a better church gathering.
Yes, sir.
If you don't like the word I'm preaching, get your game up. Get on up in this pulpit and preach your word. If you don't like our technology, bring better technology. Y'all have heard me say this before. My mindset before I was Pastor Mike was just simply, I have to be in church because church isn't as good without me.
Yeah.
Not because I was all that in a bag of Doritos, but I know I had something to bring to the experience. See, I stopped the mindset of coming to church to just get a long time ago.
Yes.
I'm coming to give.
Yeah.
Because gumbo is only as good as the ingredients that you bring together.
My God. My God.
And this is why we ought to pray for our brothers and sisters when they aren't here. Because that means that's one less person bringing something to this pot of gumbo.
Yes, sir. You're right about it.
We have to bring more than our flesh. We have to bring our faith.
My God.
We find ourselves stuck because we fail to foresee. You're next. We're not waiting on the next move of God. You are the next move of God. You're the next move of God in your family. You're the next move of God in your community. You're the next move of God in this church. You're the next move of God in the workplace. You're the next move of God in your neighborhood. You're the next move of God wherever you go. And so we have to carry ourselves accordingly. Somebody say, hello.
Hello.
My name is Next.
My name is Next.
We find ourselves stuck because we fall back on familiarity. Stop trying to move in to places that God is trying to move on from.
That's the truth.
Last week's glory was good.
Good. That's it.
I want this week's glory.
Yes.
The same way he gives us new mercies every morning, I believe he gives us new glory. And we'll go faith to faith,
Yes.
glory to glory. I'm not moving into last week's glory. I'm preparing myself for the next glory.
Yes.
And last but not least, don't forget to follow through. Never enter a new place
Yes, sir.
and forget to leave with new power.